What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Racially Speaking. I'm David, and man, I got the distinct privilege of being joined by a first-time guest. And really, a lot of times I have people on here that I've known for quite some time, but man, I'm pumped to have a new friend of about a week, about a week now, join me today. If you follow me on social media at all, I post a little bit about it in my story. But I'm joined by Jeffery the Art. I'm going to call you by your handle, but Jeffery the
That's
Artist,
fine.
which I
Yeah,
think is
that's
fire.
fine. Appreciate you,
Weatherford's your
man.
last name, right?
Yep, that's
Yeah,
correct.
yeah. Jeffery the Artist, though. Jeffrey, thank you for being here. And look, I follow me on social media. I've known about you for a week, and I found out about you because my 9-year-old here in Radford. I was picking him up from school last week. He jumped in the car and said, "Papa," they call me Papa. "Papa, I know how to rap." And I was like, that's random. And I'm like, "That's awesome. How?" And, the rest is history. Told me about you, Jeffrey, your mother, and you guys coming into the school, sharing about your guys' story, your work, your art. Given the times, let's be honest, I was very encouraged. It was a breath of fresh air to hear about a little bit about your guys' story from the mouth of my 9-year-old. And then I quickly, looked you guys up. I was like, this is great. I'm so encouraged and just encouraged in general that you guys are around doing what you're doing. And then selfishly was very excited to hear that you guys came and talked to not only my kids, but the kids in my little old town down here in Southwest Virginia. So without further ado, Jeffrey, thank you so much for coming on here and doing what you do. Would you give a little bit of intro to you a little bit, but tell listeners who you are and what you do, man.
Absolutely. So again, thank you for having me. My mother and I, we came to a school in Radford. Actually, a few schools. We did the pre-Ks, we did the elementary school, and then we did Radford, like a university session as well. So we hit
Okay,
the
that's
whole
awesome.
gambit. Yeah, we hit the whole gambit. All the age ranges, and
Yeah.
what I specifically do, I am a children's book illustrator, and now I'm officially children's book author. This is my
Man,
first author title.
yeah, congrats. I left my copy upstairs. I meant to bring it up and hold it up, but you got it.
It's all good. It's all good. I had to come prepared. Got to come prepared,
Absolutely.
So
Yeah. If you guys aren't
I've
watching on
been
YouTube, you're missing the beautiful cover of his book. But anyway, yeah.
right on. So I've been working in the children's book realm since 2016. That was when my first illustrated title was published, called "You Can Fly," about the Tuskegee Airmen, the first African American pilots during World War II.
Mm,
Written by my mother, Carol Boston Weatherford, who's been writing a published children's book author since 1996. And to this day, I think she has about almost 100 children's books about African American history,
oh my gosh.
right now, and counting. So, following in
That's
her
fantastic.
footsteps, absolutely, absolutely. I've been following in her footsteps, and as of recently, like I said, I just became author. So this is the first title that I didn't illustrate. It's illustrated by a muralist by the name of Ernell Martinez. And
Okay.
this book is specifically about teaching kids how to use the English language. Of course, it's about teaching kids how to rap, but the goal isn't to go out there and say, hey, be the next Kendrick Lamar, or be
Mm-hmm.
the next Missy Elliott, or Busta Rhymes, or anything like that. Because the first thing that we do when we meet somebody new, we talk to them, right? You have to know how to tell your own story. Nobody else is going to tell your story but you. Your parents can't come and introduce you to everybody that you meet, or your parents can't go to the job interview and like, hey, little Jeffrey needs to get this job. Like, can you please give him this job?
Yeah.
That it doesn't work like that. So it's really for the purpose of showing kids that their words are their power, and that their voice matters.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing to follow in the footsteps of your mother and all that. So you've illustrated before. So before this book, you just became an author. You've illustrated kids versions of some of her books. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Wow, that's
So
awesome.
I've worked on 3 books, 3 illustration projects with my mom so far. So You Can Fly, the Tuskegee Airmen, Call Me Miss Hamilton, about a very obscure civil rights activist by the name of Mary Hamilton, and then Kin, Rooted in Hope, which is a chronicle of our family history dating all the way back to the 1700s.
Wow. Wow. Look, you said you've been doing this since about 2016. My ears perk up to going back to then what was, kind of the start of a lot of, I'd say the beginning of almost where we're at now with a lot of things was political polarization, um, and whatnot. Is that coincidence or were you inspired? And I mean, I know you've been following in the footsteps of your mother. Was there a time or anything specific that in 2016 was like, now's the time to officially really tackle this and go at this full throttle?
I was graduating from my thesis, my master's program at Howard University, so it's
Okay.
definitely a time to like choose my path. Could have gone, the corporate world, try and find like some type of artistic graphic design job, something to that extent. But I we got the contract for You Can Fly, and I completed the book. And within 1 month of the book being actually published, we got invited to 3 countries in Africa on a world tour. So, I
Wow.
couldn't just find a job and be like, okay, by the way, I'm going to Africa for the next month and a half.
Sure.
Don't mind me. But at that point, it was pretty much like, I guess I'm a children's book illustrator now, and started going around talking to kids, giant groups of kids at the same time, and expanding their knowledge and their understanding of African American history and history abroad. So, it was just, I guess, divine timing in a sense. It's the same year that Trump first got elected, and
Hmm.
like you said, the start of a whole slew of polarizing events.
Oh yeah.
So,
So much has not changed, unfortunately.
yeah, right.
But so even taking you back to, I mean, your childhood, and then and then growing up. I'm assuming growing up, your mother's son, you were very well informed about your culture and the need for somebody doing really what she's doing, what you're doing now. Is that like, do you remember being in school and having the wherewithal even at a young age to see that what you're now doing yourself was missing, like in the classroom and in school settings? Does that inform anything you're doing now, like motivation to speak to kids now?
Definitely. I know when I was growing up, the most you really heard about African American history in school was like, Martin Luther King and I Have a Dream. And then
Yeah,
they just
that's
glazed
it.
over like Harriet Tubman
Yeah.
helped take some people to freedom, and Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves. So there wasn't really many stories that we could call ours. And, there was millions of enslaved people. So there's a million stories out there that haven't been
Mhm.
told. And unfortunately, in our society, these stories are kind of deemed as less important. So there's a space to put all that information out, and people, they're craving that history because we've been disconnected from our roots.
Yeah. What do you think, so fast forward even to now, compared to your upbringing or even like a 2016 or growing up, um, elementary school, middle school, wherever you wanna rewind back to, and then thinking about now, what do you think, in your opinion, is the difference? Maybe not the difference in why certain things are happening, but, uh, like you, I mean, I can think back to growing up, and I notice now in hindsight, these stories weren't being told even when we were growing up. What do you think about the state of things now where even those low level, even, just recently stuff about Harriet Tubman being removed? Like, what do
Right,
you
right.
think is, trying to figure out what I'm trying to ask, but like, what in your words is why is it so concerning nowadays that it's more egregiously being examined and, I mean, dare I say, attacked or censored?
Yeah, you definitely can say that.
Yeah, I mean,
Definitely.
compared to back when it was just like, man, these stories are missing. They need to be told.
Right. I think it's first, it's a horrible thing that the powers that be are trying to remove history, because again, when you're disconnected from your roots, like you don't grow right, right? If a tree disconnected from its roots, it can die, right? So that's the same thing with
Mm,
youth in the culture. if you don't know where you came from, don't know the power that you hold, it's hard to grow right. And I think that is by design. You know, they realize that a rich history, someone who has understanding of self, is harder to control, harder to pull the wool over their eyes about certain situations, about the truth, speaking truth to power. So, you know, they don't want intelligent people, don't want too intelligent people, right? Just enough to carry on, keep the cog in the machine rolling, fit
Mm,
in, keep the status quo level, not any outside the box thinkers, anything like that. Uh, and I think that's the way it's actually been for a long time. You know, they only want you to exceed so much, right? Don't go beyond a certain point. Um, Stay within the lanes that we've paved out for you. Don't try to create a new
mhm.
path. Don't try and expand the realm that we exist in. The things they want things to go a certain way, and if they don't exert that power, if they don't remove the opportunity to grow in that power, then they lose grip. They lose
Yeah,
control.
yeah, yeah. What was how long have you so you got into illustrating, you said about 2016, I guess, officially. How long have you been and I mean, your Instagram handle is Jeffery the Artist, so you're obviously a multi-talented guy, now an author. How long have you been rapping or writing music?
Writing music. So that started, and it's actually a funny story. So I didn't start rapping like my own verses until 2007. That was the first year that I was in college, my freshman year in college. And I went into my dorm room with some of my three best friends at the time, my college roommates, and they're like, "Yo, let's cipher, let's start up a cipher." And I was like what, like cipher? And then all of them, they started rapping like they just been doing this, like this was something that they learned how to do in school, and they just been doing it since they,
Mm,
you know, came out the womb, type of vibe. And then like, all right, Jeff, your turn, jump in. And then it got to me, and I was just like I didn't have this class in school. I don't know how y'all learned how to do this, but that's not part of what I learned how to do. So you know, I was embarrassed. Needless to say, I couldn't hop in the cipher, couldn't write the beat, do anything like that. So I went back to my personal dorm room, and you know, I hopped on the internet and I typed, "How do I rap?" So I learned how to rap from the internet. You know, and it just told me
wow,
that
okay.
it told me that I need to do three things. The first thing, gain a command of the English language through reading the dictionary, you know, improving my vocabulary,
Oh,
get
wow.
at the source so you can, you know, connect different words. Second, it told me I need to stay relevant. So that means reading current events. You can watch the news, you know, stay up with pop culture. And the third thing that it told me to do, which relates to anything, and the main thing that I tell kids when I talk to them at school, is just practice, right? Practice will lay the bricks to your dreams, right? Bridge that
Mhm,
gap to your dreams. You know, I know that all kids might not want to be a children's book illustrator or a children's book author or a rapper, but there's something that like, when I grow up, I want to be a scuba diver or whatever the case may be. But you're gonna have to practice, right?
yeah,
Practice makes progress. Practice makes perfect. The way that you practice is the way that you perform. So just showing kids that it's not. We live in like a microwave culture, right? Where you can always gaze at the progress and the path of somebody else at the snap of a finger, at the drop of a hat, right? You can look on social media, you could go on TikTok or whatever the Snapchats and all these social media platforms and see top level performers in your craft, and it's easy to compare yourself to these
mm,
people. And I
highlight
found
culture.
that, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So you can see the skills that these people have portrayed, right? But we don't understand the path that they've taken to get there, right? And then
that's
that
true.
creates this disconnect in kids' minds, like, oh, I'm not as good as LeBron James right now. Like I'm not good. I can't dunk a basketball yet. Not knowing that, you know, he had to go in the gym, like do squats to get those jumps, right? There's practice behind the professionalism, right? And telling kids that, you know, it takes 10,000 hours, they say, to become a master. And I say that's just the start of mastery. So you have to go through
Mhm,
that pain, right? Because there's going to be a lot of no's, right? You're going to run into a lot of obstacles. You're going to run into a lot of self doubt on the road. So you have to be able to persevere. You have to be able to be patient. You have to persist in your goals. And of course, you have to practice and prepare, right? So you have to just be ready when that door opens, because you never know when it's going to be open. And one single yes can change like an entire lifetime of no's.
Man. Yeah. Man. I love that. I love that. Do you, what do you think is like is the most misunderstood thing about either what you do and or I'd say like hip hop and rap? Because I think there's a lot of there can be a lot of negative connotations bridging the gap that you're
Definitely.
bridging. Like even you saying like I teach English, so I love hearing you say, man, no, it's connected, knowing and having the command of the English language. What do you think is the most misunderstood belief about people that might not be huge hip hop or rap fans?
So for me, I know that rap is therapeutic, right? There's
Mm,
specifically there's a saying in hip hop like hip hop saved my life, but a lot of people don't really talk about what that means. But what I speak to is that, especially in the African American community, mental health is like a taboo, right? So
mm,
people will tell you to pray about what's ever going on rather than talk about it. They don't want to hear like your issues. But for me, so many other artists, they put their pain into their verses. And I know in my personal experience, by me doing what I've done, like I've talked about some very controversial things in my verses at points. And at one point, like your pain can make you feel like you're alone, right? But then when you put that pain on wax, on a record and you put it out there, like I've seen people transform, like people's eyes light up, and I've realized that I'm not alone. There's so many other people who go through the
mm.
exact same things. And when you put your pain out there for the world, it begins a healing process, right? The pain starts to become your power.
Yeah, yeah. Do you I mean how often are you in do you regularly go in schools like all over the country or
Yeah, definitely. We actually, this was the first time that we went to Singapore. We were in Singapore in the beginning of March for a week and a half. We went to an international school out there, and we were, teaching about like I had to rap in front of the auditoriums full of kids. It's always something that's amazing to me. Like I remember a long time ago, this was like what I'm doing now is essentially living my dreams that I had a long time ago. I get to go around, rap, get paid for it, like living
yeah.
quite literally the life of a rapper in a capacity. Not
Yeah, yeah.
necessarily the chains and the charms and the cars and all that stuff, but really doing something that's passion filled. I get to extend a hand of mentorship to a younger generation. Uh, I realized at a very early age that kids, they if you ask a room full of kids, okay, I need you to name like 5 politicians, right? Most
Mhm.
of them will be able to name like 2 or 3, typically the vice president and the president, and then that's it. But if you ask them to name like 10 of their favorite artists, their favorite music artists, they'll be able to rattle them off like that. And I realized
Yeah.
that kids, they place the same importance on musicians as they do on politicians. And I
Wow.
realized that I could fill that gap that's between music and politics, and I chose to make verses that are specifically for the purpose of edutainment, right? Of like hip hop is a great way to have fun, but when you couple that with education, just like your kid came back, was like, yo, I can rap now, like that's what edutainment is. It's hip hop. I see hip hop is higher infinite power healing our people, right? So it's not just about your turn up music, go out there and party, go out there and get fresh. Like I feel like hip hop should always have a message. I grew up on that style of hip hop, conscious rap. So I feel like if you can do something, if you can be the change, then you should be the change.
Yeah. Who were some of your favorite rappers or inspirations musically?
Definitely. So, growing up, I was listening to a lot of Outkast, Tribe Called Quest, KRS-One, Shook One, like, Busta Rhymes, like a lot of technical rappers. Tupac, of course, Biggie. I grew up in that era as well. Not necessarily the best messages in some of those music, but the technical aspects, especially like Biggie, the messages that Tupac had to put forth. Africa Bambaataa, uh, the OGs of the game. And as I started to grow, I guess older and older, I started to see like a distinct change in the music that was being put forth. Like it started to become more about like substances and degrading, like mentally degrading subject matter, for lack of a better word. And I decided at that point that I needed to kind of throw my gloves in the ring and start to make music that I would want my kids to hear. Not, I don't have any kids yet. We're actually expecting our first
Oh
July
yeah,
16th. Appreciate you,
congratulations. That's
appreciate you.
amazing.
So yeah, I know that kids, they're going to be inheriting the earth, so we have to. They're important, right? You have to equip them with the right skills. So many skills in order to carry on this earth ship. So I can't sit by and let like the no shade or anything to any rappers that I'm about to name, but when I go to schools, I hear them talk about like NBA Young Boy and Roddy Rich and Young Thugs and all this stuff, and I'm like, this music is like, it's not really uplifting you.
Okay, so
And a lot of
for people listening might not know anything about them. Explain why you mentioned them how you just did. I'm not saying that, like you said, no
Yeah,
disrespect to them,
absolutely,
but why is that
absolutely. So
contextually?
the music that you hear on the radio, I classify as rap music, right? That's just rhythm and poetry, right? That doesn't necessarily have a positive message. If you're listening out there, you've heard the music on the radio, the turn up music, to go out there, do drugs, go out there, shoot
Mhm,
somebody, all
mhm,
that type of vibe, go out there, steal, all that craziness. And
mhm,
then you have the music that's underground, and a lot of, I'm not going to say all the music that's underground is hip hop, but if hip hop is, it leaves you feeling much better uh, than you started out, then that's hip hop. If it leaves you feeling like, wow, like that was like really something that needs to be carried forward. That was something that empowered me. That was something that told me something that I didn't know before. Right? That's what hip hop is about. Higher infinite power healing our people. It's not supposed to tear you down. It's not supposed to make you feel more negative than when you first listen to the song.
mhm.
So these artists, again, no shade. I don't want anybody coming for me out here off these internet airwaves, but
I think you got enough authority in the game to speak your mind here.
appreciate you, appreciate you. So the music that they put out is not necessarily setting the listeners up for success, right?
Mm,
And that's what I feel like hip hop should do.
mm, okay. So when you hear the younger kids say right off the bat, when you ask like who's your favorite artist, and they say the names you just said, you're inspired to point them in a different direction. Again, not disrespecting them,
Absolutely.
but you're seeing a bigger issue of missing the point that you believe of the purity of the genre.
Absolutely.
What is
I'm
that
a big
specific example?
believer, yeah, in the power of words. There's we've all heard this before, abracadabra, right? And
Hmm.
that's actually ancient Hebrew for I create what I speak. It's not
Mm,
just some random magic term. And words, you spell words, words are spells, the power, there's power of life and death in the tongue. And a lot of these rappers who are talking about this gangster stuff, they end up in situations like, they're getting arrested, they're getting robbed, they're getting shot. Rappers have like these drill rappers, they have a very low life expectancy. Like there's no other way to put it. And they say if you live by the gun, you die by the gun. It's ringing true. So you have to watch, just like you are what you eat, you are what you listen to, right? You're
mm,
programming yourself to attract these certain energies in your life. So you have to be very, very aware of what you're listening to, what you're allowing into your vibrational space, because music is a vibe, right? That's what they call it. You're vibing. So
Yeah. That's interesting. I mean, interesting thing you bring up because I'd say some of the negative connotations of rap for people that maybe are just averse to. Well, I don't like. It might be how I am sometimes towards like country music. Like, nah, I don't mess with that. I feel like the pushback is commonly that would be another conversation, but it's commonly a oh well, all I hear is like what you're saying is drugs, sex, alcohol, partying, shooting up places, can't understand what they're saying. Like, one, I'd wonder, like, how do you've kind of unpacked it, but how do you, when you're met with that kind of opposition to rap and the history of it, like, how do you explain that away while also acknowledging, well, yeah, I mean, I understand maybe why you're saying that, but like, how would you explain that away? And then, I mean, I'd say too, like, I wonder if you could break down, I know loosely what it is, but like the difference between like drill music and then music that might talk about those kind of topics, but I wouldn't necessarily categorize as drill music. Is
right.
that making
So
sense?
yeah, definitely. So in terms of people's understanding of rap music, just how you can say, oh, there's different types of country music, right? You can't just go to the radio and judge all country music as the same, right? So
No, I'm
they
just kidding.
it's the same
You're right.
thing, right? You can't judge all rap music by the music that you hear on the radio. If you really want to understand something, you have to do research about it. And research isn't necessarily just taking everything at face value, hearing what you hear on the radio and say, oh wow, I hate this music, I can't understand what they're saying. But we have to understand that just like in politics, there's an agenda behind what you hear on the radio, right? Behind what you see on the music videos on TV. It's by design. The music that is going to be empowering, that's not going to be talking about, the shoot 'em up, whatever, drugs, sex, drugs, rock and roll, all that stuff. You have to search for it, right? It's not just going to fall into your lap, just like the knowledge of culture, that's been omitted from school, right? It's not just going to fall into your lap. You have to do some work to find it. But the work that you do is always going to be worth it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I gotta ask this. Like, I'd wonder because I feel like this is touching on it, and I didn't really dive into this much here on the podcast. But what were some of your thoughts between like what was going on with Kendrick and Drake? Not necessarily breaking down their whole beef, but I feel like
Hmm.
it brought up a lot of these issues and topics. Like so uh paint with broad strokes, like a super quick summary, which you will definitely fill in stuff I missed. But I think like broadly speaking, Kendrick Lamar is what I'd say is kind of well known as like the best lyricist and doesn't necessarily talk about all these things we're talking about that are concerning. Like, is not uplifting sex, drugs, and alcohol like solely. He's not like a rapper for the club, just turning up and stuff. He's a lot. He's got powerful messages. With that said, lots of stuff that will lots of profanity and stuff like that, and things that will push certain audiences away. And I'll say isn't like he's probably my top 3 favorite rappers, but he's not like somebody that I'm like, "Man, I just wanna chill out and listen to some Kendrick." Like, he's not that kinda rapper. And then the other side of things is Drake, who is kind of unapologetically the opposite. Like, he's
Right.
almost trashes Kendrick for being so deep and to kinda get over himself, and is like, "Man, I just wanna play stuff for the club." And he's been called out for bowing to money and stuff like that and not caring about African American culture and the black community at the expense of money and stuff like that. So I wonder what some of your thoughts are with that, with um, as you navigate encountering a lot of different views, whether it's within the black community and or people giving their own input because that was on the most national stage, the Super Bowl, and everyone's aware of loosely what was going um, on with that. So I'd wonder what some of your thoughts are in relation to some of what we're already talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, two black men dragging each other down. It's never gonna necessarily be okay with me. I, alongside many other of my hip hop compatriots, like we understand that hip hop is competitive.
Mm.
If you are in a so-called rap beef, I mean, I know J. Cole, he bowed out of it, and nobody can. At the end of the day, I feel like he won big as well. Like Drake, or not Drake, J. Cole, he's an amazing artist. Like, and nobody can take his pen away from him. Even if he didn't compete, he still makes music, still makes amazing music. Um, Definitely Drake lost big in that entire situation. Kendrick billions of streams off of his music. But I
Would
feel
you
like it was
say?
all just
So I don't want to cut you off. Would you say? How would you say? Why would you say he lost, other than just beyond streams and money? Like, why would you
it
honestly say he
was
lost?
it was the content that Kendrick put forth, and then at a point there was no more response that
Mm,
Drake came with, and that kind of puts the nail in the coffin in any rap battle. Whoever has the last word, essentially, and you can say by the response to the last record, they not like us. Like Kendrick went all the way to the Super Bowl. They're saying they're not like us all around the world,
mm,
right?
yeah.
And the Drake jokes were going around. Like yeah, he took the L on that one,
Yeah.
definitely.
No,
But
I mean,
at the end,
I don't disagree.
yeah, he still put out music. He's put out an album after that.
Hmm.
Life goes on. We People still are going to remember what happened, but yeah, people these days, they have very low attention spans due to this uh, scroll culture. Essentially, they're gonna get over it just like they get over everything else. Yeah, he lost. I can say that he
Hmm.
lost in that, but I'm glad that it didn't go to anything beyond that. Uh, like there's the rap beef between like Tupac and Biggie that actually ended in both of them dying.
Hmm.
There's been more beefs that aren't necessarily mainstream. That it could have ended badly. So I'm glad that they're both still standing. I haven't heard anything about any like fallout from that. So
Yeah, I mean, I think there was one incident around Drake's house that something happened with a security guard or something, but that was pretty early on. I don't think anyone, yeah, died,
yeah, that's
but
good.
yeah,
That's
other
good.
than that, yeah, for sure. What was the other part of the question I asked you? Oh yeah, I'd wonder if you could break down like what you mentioned drill music and then
Hmm.
people's perspective on rap content, I guess. So there's drill music, and then I'd say there's music that maybe fakes it a little bit. I don't know, that talks about I don't know, violence and stuff maybe adjacent to it, but I'd say I'm for sure not the expert in this conversation, but what there's a difference, I think, in the two.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the drill music is like it's specifically almost every bar is about like a drill is like gun, right? Like it's like doing the dirt in the streets, whatever you want to call it, like running down on people, getting at your ops, right? The opposition, hurting the opposition, uh, and the difference is that that's like hyper focused. Drill music is hyper focused, and those rappers typically every song that they make is it's almost like the same song with just a different beat,
Mm,
right? These rappers who talk about it like sporadically, it might just be sprinkled into a bar, eloquently put. They probably didn't live that type of constant, that constant lifestyle. So there's a certain sense of je ne sais quoi that they bring it with, like for instance, J. Cole's Neighbors, right? He's like, the neighbors think I'm selling dope. And the song is about his neighbors think he's selling in like to a casual listener, right? They may think that the whole song is about him selling dope, but it actually is not about him selling dope at
Mm,
all. It's about him being a black man in a nice neighborhood and his neighbors having the perception and the prejudice to believe that because he has all of these cars, chains, his homies around him, that they're doing something bad next door.
yeah. That's is there with drill music is from my understanding, isn't there often more like there's truth to it sometimes? Like they're almost because I know this came up when and this comes up frequently, I guess, nowadays, but where people have wanted to be able to use for rap lyrics to be permissible in court, stuff like that. Isn't there a certain level of drill music that's like, yeah, they're literally just singing about the people they've
What
knocked
they've
off?
done. Yeah, there is. I mean, and they call that dry snitching.
Mm,
You telling
yeah.
on yourself, like might as well put your microphone up to a police recorder. Um, I still don't understand why you would do that, especially knowing the history of like the Ricos. Like they'll build a case against you for years and years and years, and it's all stuff that you said, and they align that with what's actually happened in your area, and it's like it's not too difficult to figure out. So I don't understand um, that aspect of it, but it's definitely it's just like how people doing anything for attention these days. Uh, you get, I guess, clout for doing, like, unfortunately, like behaving in these manners, being a shooter, right? That gives you street credibility, all that. But
Mm,
as we said earlier in this podcast, it's like, you live by the gun, you die by the gun, or if you live a gangster life, then what happens, like the same thing that happens to gangsters is going to end up happening to you. And
mm,
typically that's either you're in jail or you're dead. That's typically the two routes that living the life of a gangster goes.
yeah. Man, that's good. This is man, super informative. Um, I don't want I don't want to be presumptuous and invite myself into this conversation, but even you keep saying stuff that makes me think about just I like the intersectionality of a lot of topics that come up with talking about rap and hip hop. So I'd wonder, like, I err on the side of in these types of conversations, like with justice and race and stuff. Like I just because of history, I don't I really don't like, and I try never to do this. I don't like policing or telling anybody, especially any group of people, how they should talk. I think that can be very, very problematic. I'd argue that, or not argue, but I think it's safe to say that happens more than anybody to the black community, especially if you throw in, rap and hip hop. So I was wondering, like, what your perspective is on like conversations that maybe within the black community you guys have to have, or maybe don't. I think if you're having them, we're having them with each other. What your perspective is on stuff like I heard one of the lyrics in Kendrick's newest one of the newest songs is don't let any white comedian speak on black women. I mean, I butchered it, but it was
Yeah, something to that extent.
something to that
Something to
extent.
that
He's
extent.
referencing the comedian who's been everywhere lately. I think Andrew Schultz, and he kind of Andrew Schultz, this guy, a white comedian, very demonstrative and a loud dude. Um, he kind of clapped back and said, how about we don't let the person that says this, and this, I don't have the lyrics, but says this, and this about women police anybody on how to respect women. I'd wonder how you like what you think about that kind of dynamic of people, an outsider like a white, literally like a white comedian telling Kendrick how to talk, but then Kendrick first bringing up like essentially communicating that he's sticking up for black women when some of his lyrics from other people's perspective are like, well, you've said plenty of degrading things towards women yourself in your music. Like, how do you like reconcile those kind of tensions? If that makes sense.
That's a great question. Um, I mean, from an historical standpoint, gatherings of African American people have been even as far as illegal, right? So to
Mm,
say
yeah.
that, African Americans, we can't have our own space to talk in, or that other people can't throw their voice in, I feel like there hasn't necessarily been a space where we do that on a consistent basis. Yes, we have the African American church, even though the civil rights movement was so long ago, like that was a one of the starting points of the movement. And I feel like we've kind of gotten away from actually having these community conversations. It's nice to talk about it, nice to defend people like on a public stage, but if you're not actually doing the work, not saying that Kendrick hasn't started conversations, because he has. The Super Bowl, like him performing at the Super Bowl, created uh, all types of conversations, right? But at the end of the day, it's not their job to corral the people to act or to
Mm,
come together, right? They can spark the idea, but it's up to us as individuals, us as the people, to take action on the feelings that we get from these situations, right? Like Kendrick he's not a superhero, right? Like
mhm,
just because he performed at the Super Bowl and said, "Oh, they picked the wrong one for this," like, Trump didn't stop doing anything. The people who are banning books, they didn't stop banning books. The people who are pulling knowledge out of schools, they didn't stop doing any of that, right? So it's not up to the artist to say or defend anything. And in fact, like I think we kind of touched on this earlier, like in the artists who are not necessarily talking about anything, like not talking about anything, but they're not talking about positive things that are uplifting the community. And people, we place this huge, we put artists on a pedestal, and we expect them to either have a voice on something or not. And it's like they're kind of darned if they do, darned if they don't. Some artists even go as far as say that they're not role models.
mm,
I'm
yeah.
not here to parent your children, even though that regardless of how they feel about whether or not they're a role model, they are indeed role models, right? Because you can't escape the fact that thousands, millions, hundreds of millions of people are looking at you. The kids are looking at you and they want to be like you, because that's how the youth are. When they see somebody who's in a position of purpose or position of power, they're like, I want to be like that person. Like, that's what I want to be. So there has to be some type of responsibility with what artists are saying. Like Kendrick, he has grown a lot as an artist. He grew up in Compton, which is like gangland, right? And
Mhm,
the type of stuff that he first started rapping about, yeah, he's talking about women and all this. He did talk about some gang activity in some of his music as well, but you can see like how he's changed as he's gained more and more experience, more and more experiences of the world outside of that, right? Like you said, sometimes you wouldn't just listen, like turn on a Kendrick song to chill out. But
yeah.
for me, I know that I've heard some songs like Money Trees. Like that song is a very chill song to just cruise to. And
Mhm,
I think that's just the versatility of the artist. You don't always have to be switched on to revolutionary mode or switched on to party mode. Like you can talk about the things that you're feeling at the time. And I think that's what we kind of saw in that situation. Like the artist, the comedian he brought up, like Kendrick has talked about like women in a negative sense, but he's also talked about them in a positive sense, right?
mm,
So it's like you can't say one thing without saying, but he's also done this. But yeah, conversations amongst celebrities, it's cool and all, but it's something that the people need to do. Like we got to stop placing so much um, energy and attention into these people who don't live like normal people, right? Like
mm,
it comes
yeah.
to a point where it's like, okay, you're a celebrity, you have no worries in the world right now. Like you're not worried about the inflation, like the growing cost of groceries, like all the things that normal people worry about that we have to come together and change. Like that's
Mhm.
outside of the scope of their existence at this point. So we just have to do our part and what we can do, and we have to start the conversations.
Yeah, that's good. What do you think about like the palatability of rap? Like, how do you view that as a critique or not a critique, I guess, on the genre overall? I'm a big, I mean, I consider myself a really big fan of the genre. Like, what do you? I also love the Broadway musical Hamilton. I
Mm-hmm.
like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I feel like you referenced this when I was, scrolling through, I think your Instagram. I don't know if you have thoughts on the surge kind of in Christian hip hop nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
And I've also heard, you would know better. I don't know if this is still true, but I mean, statistically, ironically, even though a lot of the pushback is from white people, but statistically, rap is listened to by white people like more than anybody. Not that they like it better than the black community, but just says like white people like it, like for whatever reason they listen to it, even if they want to push back on it. So like, do you have a is there any cynicism in you because you feel like a very positive guy when it comes to all these conversations? Like, so I love something like I love Hamilton, but I'm aware, but I very much feel like I understand when people who are like purists of like hip hop and stuff like are like that's not rap or hip hop, and that's kind of made it palatable or like watered down to a Broadway audience, and some people don't like it. And I also like I'm like that's fair. Or even Christian hip hop, like there's the maybe it's not always explicitly said, but it's like, well, this is a good rapper because he's a Christian, or he doesn't curse, which that's maybe a different conversation too. Because I say there's plenty of secular artists that don't use a lot of cursing, but I don't know. What do you think? What role with palatability do you feel like it plays in the overall purity of it?
Um, so hip hop was always abrasive. It's like from the beginning. We can say that when, Funk Master, like the Furious Five, all of them, they're
Hmm.
scratching records, right? Like people like hated it. Like the original musicians who were getting their records scratched up, they're like, this is like the devil, right? Like, and a lot of these people, like they were white people, like, and I think it was just because black people were making this music like from nothing, essentially, like the break beat, that was something that they created. Like nobody thought it had even fathomed it. A new music genre, a black face to it, and they didn't think it was going to last. And now, hip hop is one of the like biggest exports of music in the United States. Like you can go to any corner of the world and listen to hip hop music, right? My mom, she says that hip hop is the language of global youth culture, right? You can go to any place on the planet as long as they have electricity, right? And you can listen to hip hop music. There's rappers who will be rapping in that language, right?
Oh,
Using that the poetic devices, the idioms of that language to create and craft rap verses. Um, it's an unstoppable force because it's a language for the people, right? A low budget uh, music form. One, because all you need to rap is your voice, right? It's like your classical music. We've been kind of ostracized as a people from a lot of different musical genres. Like, your parents as a kid, they wouldn't buy you a guitar because, it's $200, $300, $400, and you got to get like a speaker with it. And, that's not something that was on the table for a lot of African Americans because, just historically speaking, we've always been financially downtrodden because of the history in the United States.
hmm.
And so, like, I believe that because of how hip hop was birthed, There always is going to be, that edge, that grunge to it, because it is ours. It's kind of like a like puffing our chest, like this is ours. You can't make us change. We're gonna say what we want. We're gonna do what we want. We're gonna dress how we want. Like hip hop has its own dress code. Like, it's totally different from if you go to the music awards for, we keep talking about country, right? Your
Sure.
country music, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna have people in cowboy hats and boots and all the whole nine
Mm.
yards. But if you go to a hip hop show, you're gonna have people in all types of colors. Like, it's very African, right? Like the color schemes. If you've ever seen like different fabrics in Africa, it's very reminiscent of these different fabrics, like the flamboyant colors, like royalty colors.
Mm.
So there's always going to be that I'm going to say it's going to be always African in its core, right? Like the spoken word is one of the oldest forms of storytelling. You go back to African history, you have the griot, right? All these rappers are American griots,
Mm.
right? They're telling the stories of the streets, of the people, of politics as they see it, right? Politics through the people's mouths, of love, of hate, even, of good times, bad times, the whole nine yards, or just griots.
Yeah. Do you have like a personal like purity test? Like when you hear about something that you didn't know, or like I don't know, like maybe like a new Christian artist, or like a Hamilton or something. Like obviously that blew up bigger than anything you can imagine, but was there any I remember so my wife is a huge Broadway person, and so she got me into Hamilton, but I remember this is a long time ago now when it came out, when she told me, it's like, "Oh, you should listen to this. You would like it." And I was like, I didn't hate musicals. I just didn't grow up around them like she did and liking them that much. I was like, "Okay, what's it about?" And she's like, "Well, she told me a story like Alexander Hamilton, da da da." But it's it's rap R&B, and told me even the story of why Lin Manuel Miranda did it that way and stuff. And I mean, honestly, my initial pushback was like, I mean, what kind of like, what do you mean it's rap? And like, is it? So I mean, my cynicism was to run to the internet and be like, let me see like who have people signed off on this, like do historians sign off on this, but then do like actual rappers sign off on this? And yeah, I mean, for the most part, I was like, all right, well, seems like it's not. Seems like it's gotten the go ahead, and from a lot of voices that I would care enough about. I mean, I I love it. Like I became obsessed with it. I love just the intersection of all the things that went into that music and play. But like I said, I still like. I've talked to plenty of people that are like, nah, that's not it. I just can't. Like they've dumbed it down too much. That we have to. Are we really gonna act like this is good rap music and stuff? And I mean, I see the validity in that, and but so I would just wonder, like, do you have like a so in that instance, I see it kind of both ways. Doesn't mean I don't love it still, but do you have a personal like? Where's the line for you? Like purity test when you hear about somebody that maybe people are like become obsessed about too quickly.
So I always try and take everybody's opinion with a grain of salt.
Mm.
If and I do try my best to stay unaffected by other people's opinions. Like I'll hear about something, like say for instance, I'm hearing about the Kendrick and Drake beef, or I won't really read into it much. I want to get my own opinion formulated before I start to read about what other people think. I like to just trust myself, trust my instincts.
Mm.
I've been told that I have the ear, which means I know when something's good or not. Like I've used to work at a radio station and promote music and all that stuff. And a few artists that I worked with, like they asked me to select their songs, and those songs got like went on to get like millions of views, millions of streams, and that type of thing. So I trust my own artist instinct. I trust my own ear when it comes to listening to new hip hop. And it's like I'm not gonna say that what I think about music is like extremely important in the great scheme of music or anything, but I know generally when something's good or when something's bad, right? Like I can feel it in my spirit. So
Mm.
I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I like the even the spiritual feel like aspect of it. being told you got the ears, that's good. I feel like that's got to be how more people should go about it without the yeah, jump into hearing everyone else's opinion and whatnot.
Definitely. Got to formulate
Um,
your own opinions in this world.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Do you have I feel like I saw you reference who's your go-to rapper that you tell people to listen to?
Man, I see everybody asks me this in every session. Every session I tell people, man, I should be getting paid for this. But because I promote this guy every time I have anything. So we talked about secular music, and it's this artist by the name of Jay Monty. He's out in Atlanta, and he's like a incredible artist. Like his music can get you through hard times. It can help you remain calm in great times. It's just really feel good, extremely technical rap
Okay.
music, right? He is talking about like Christian ideologies, um,
Okay.
that type of thing, but there's no cursing in it. Uh, he's an artist who's from the streets, like from the streets of Atlanta, been through that lifestyle already, and he puts that in his rap, but in a way that's like, okay, like I've been through it, so you don't have to go through it. Like it brought me to this place. Like this is the thing. These are the things that I went through. And this is how it transformed me into the person that I am today. And this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. So, I always tell the kids like that's who I'm listening to. In fact, when we were at Radford University, somebody in the audience actually knew Jay Monty, which was like a first. Like I wouldn't
Okay.
expect in Radford that was going to be a connection point. But
Yeah.
yeah, so he's like an underground artist, and definitely I like rock his music when I'm working out. Even just driving down the highways, amazing music. My mom was like, "Is he a pastor? Is like what is this music?" So
Yeah, you said
it's
you're secular though. Is that did you say you're secular or in the Christian space, or is he kind of
Christian space. My bad. My
okay?
apologies.
No, that's all right. That's great. Yeah, I think I saw him when I was scrolling through your Instagram, and I was like, oh man, I never heard of this guy either.
Yeah,
So I'll definitely have to check him out.
he's amazing. Like
Yeah, yeah. Are you a fan of so a lot of my circles like Christian hip hop is big. Like I teach the university and do some ministry with a lot of college students. I mean, maybe that might have been one of my guys that was or girls that was familiar with them when you're down here in Radford. But I mean, what are your
maybe
do you like the tribe scene like with oh man no big
no big
deal
deal. Yeah, yeah,
or
yeah,
1K feud.
yeah.
This isn't that scene, but like I mean are you like down with like Lecrae, the D1s and
Definitely,
anybody? Okay. Yeah.
definitely. Like appreciate their music. Um, don't listen to it all. Like I would literally say that Jay Monty's like pretty much the only
Your
one
ride
out
or
of
die.
them that's in my playlist. Like
Yeah.
uh, there's also this new artist who's coming up. His name is DC 3. I don't know if
Okay.
you've heard of him or not.
Uh
He's this young kid out in the UK, and I just like his style. Like I'm like I'm as I said, I worked at a radio station while I was
yeah.
at Howard University. So like I'm really into like music promotion and how artists break themselves into the game. And like I love genius work that DC3 is putting out. Like he has promoted himself to like he I think he has like a 500,000 followers on
Mm.
Instagram and like
Wow.
even more on TikTok, but it's like his own style of promotion, and his music is also Christian. So a super high level, very vibey music with a
Okay.
message. So
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, I'll let you get out here on this. Like, what would you, given, we kind of stayed out of these weeds for the most part, but looking at this next generation, you have a lot invested. You got your first child on the way. You're in the schools. Like, what if you could, if you could put something forward, like what do you hope? What's something hopeful moving forward that you hope either stays the same or changes?
something that stays the same or changes. I would want to say that kids' curiosity. I want that to stay the same.
Hmm.
I've been to a lot of schools across like even abroad, like Africa, the Middle East, Singapore, the United States, all over.
Hmm.
And I find that kids are curious. right? They have a tendency to be curious, more curious than adults. And that's why I
Mm,
focus my hip hop efforts on the kids, because I realize that, no offense to all the adults out there listening, but we kind of get hard headed as we grow older and older. So
for
I want
sure.
to make sure that I get in with the kids, let them know that words are their power early, that they have a voice that they can use, that their voice is important, right? And then they can be change makers, right? Because a lot of things that are transpiring in the world, like, especially like book bans, that type of things. Like, kids are pushing back, right?
Mm,
And it's because of the kids that these book bans are getting released. Like, there's not, like, they might ban a book, and then the kids are like, no, we want that book, we want that in our schools, and they'll have to undo the book ban. So for you kids out there listening, understand that you have power. You definitely have power. You are more important than the powers that be want to put on. That's why they are putting this blanket on you, right? Because they
mm,
understand that you are the people who will inherit this world, and if they can shape you how they want you when you're young, then they'll have you for the rest of your life. So you have to be your own thinker. You have to seek out the knowledge. If it's not right in front of you, understand that there's more out there in the world than just what is placed in front of you.
yeah. Man, that's good. I gotta let you go, man. That was, man, so helpful, so informative.
Hey,
I feel
it's all
like,
love.
man,
I appreciate the opportunity.
no, we appreciate y'all. I again, I said this at the beginning. Super encouraged by what you do. My hope and, I mean, prayers honestly are that you can keep doing what you're doing for a very long time, and that, man, whatever happens, you're gonna find a way to keep doing it, which I can tell you're
Thank
you're
you.
going to. My hope is that, uh, man, we stop making it harder for you to do it. Love your heart for music, for the next generation, and, honestly, man, just being about the right things. Listeners, I mean, you just benefited a ton by hearing some deep dives on some music too, man. You know your stuff. Man, hold up your book one more time. Like, this will encourage people. You gotta check
Got
this
you.
out. Be watching us on YouTube. Like, this book, I got it upstairs. My kids love it. Man, I love it. It's beautiful book too. And, man, the
Appreciate you.
lyrics are
Yeah, shout out
amazing.
to Ernell. He definitely knocked. That was actually his first illustrated book and my first
Crazy.
title that I did not illustrate. So, shout out to Ernell. He knocked it out of the park.
Man, you working on anything? Any other books?
Absolutely. So right now I'm working on a book about MC Escher, who was one of my favorite artists growing up, and that is a title that I am illustrating. Well, hopefully that will be out within the next 2 to 3 years. The illustration process always takes longer than the writing process. Something that I definitely learned on this book here.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's crazy
we
drawings.
yeah, like this took about 3 years to come out, so hopefully there's a process that we have to go through with the creative team over at Enchanted Lion, which is the publisher for this upcoming title. Yeah, a lot of work, a lot of back and forth, but we just chip away at it one step at a time. That's what it takes.
Man, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, congratulations on
Appreciate you,
becoming
David.
a new author,
Appreciate
and,
you.
yeah, man, keep it going. All right, listeners, thank you so much for listening. The music you listen to is done by our guy Dylan Dent. Our artwork was created by Ashley Bush, and we'll see y'all next time. Peace.
Peace.